IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion
with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion
with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion
with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion
with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion
with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion
with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight our attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years, and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in this city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories, more people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at these issues. We can present them on IMHO. Vinegar Hill Magazine can take that a step further, and just together we can just make this thing that can be an example of how we can change the media landscape, how we can be more inclusive to get these voices in, to get these people heard. That's just one thing that doesn't happen in so many places, and it's a shame.
We think we live in a society that's very progressive, and we're talking about equity and diversity and inclusion and all these things. Still, the way that black people, and I would say, and I would argue especially black men, are portrayed by the media is incredibly dangerous, and you've seen the sort of tangible violence that it's led to over the past year.
The community can support the SIM project by first and foremost giving us an opportunity. We understand that it can be difficult to give trust right now, especially considering the current social and political environment. But this project will only be as successful as the community allows it to be. And so we ask you to give us the opportunity to do the work, critique the work, and make sure that we stay in line with the vision. Another way that the community can get behind the SIM project is through engagement. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're talking about. We want to put your stories out there. And so whether it's reading the articles written by Charlottesville Tomorrow or Vinegar Hill Magazine, or tuning in to In My Humble Opinion on Sundays on 101.3 Jams from noon to 3 p.m., either way, we want you engaged. We want you to be part of this. The community can also support the SIM project through funding. To learn more about how to support SIM, you can visit our website. Thank you for your support.
I to the ism, H to the Izzo Talk Show. You could be anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate it. Most definitely. It's Sir Charles.
Razor.
And we are in the booth in the building once again. Thank y'all. IMHO Talk Show online, worldwide, matter of fact, Razor. You know, I love saying that. You know,
Yeah.
But definitely on the flagship station here, WVAI. Find us on all your streaming engines. Because once again, you don't want to miss a show. Giving the people what they want, some more good edutainment, lined up show for y'all. But with Razor and I right now, we're gonna kick off today's show with our good friend from over at the Jefferson School, Miss Kimberly Sheffield, the Jefferson School Foundation, as a matter of fact. Kimberly, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How about you guys?
Doing well, blessed, just making it do what we do, Kim. I always say no matter what's going on in life and going on in the world, when these lights come on in the studio, we got a job to do. Absolutely. You know what I mean? And so we just get in the zone.
Hey, Charles, don't let her come in here like she no guest. Look. That's family right there. We ain't playing them games. It's 2025.
Razor. We trying to be professional right now. We got company.
Yeah, she know better than that.
I appreciate you guys having me, though.
Yes,
That's
indeed.
family.
And also with Kimberly today, we have Mr. Jim Battaglia, Public Relations and Development Director for our Salvation Army. Salvation Army here, long-standing cornerstone of the community. So definitely a pleasure to meet Jim. So good afternoon to you as well, sir.
Hey, thanks for having us, guys.
Absolutely. So, without further ado, folks know the great work that Kimberly does. I'm sure people are familiar with the Salvation Army as well, but we always like to make sure that we start on level playing field. So just real quick, before we dig into the partnership and initiative that you have, Kim, just go ahead and remind the folks real briefly, exactly what the Jefferson School Foundation's sort of mission is and your vision is, and then I'll get Mr. Battaglia to do the same.
All right. So the Jefferson School Foundation owns and manages the Jefferson School City Center. Our main focal point at the Jefferson School Foundation is to preserve and to sustain the historic Jefferson School.
Thank you. And so, Mr. Battaglia, folks know about the Salvation Army, but I know there's a lot of different, wings to it and a lot of different resources that it provides, right? So just sort of give an overview of our Salvation Army here and some of the things that it does for the community.
Absolutely. Like the Jefferson School and the Jefferson School Foundation, the Salvation Army has been an anchor in the community for decades. Obviously, we were a church founded well over 100 years ago, and we also offer so many different social services. We have a robust feeding program and a robust cadre of social services to help our communities unhoused and the youth of our community and the adults of our community with so many social services and programs that we offer on a daily and weekly basis.
I didn't know that y'all founded as a church. That's good information. Yep.
Every Sunday at 11. Come as you are, and we have church services.
I like that. Awesome. So thank y'all for those great introductions. And so now that folks know what the individual entities are about, tell us about this partnership, sort of what brings you guys together. And we're talking about Sleep Out CVILLE, this partnership between the Jefferson School Foundation and the Salvation Army. So tell us about first, before we dig into the nooks and crannies of the event, like how the idea itself and the partnership sort of came to be.
Well, about a year ago, I was just calling around to different partnering agencies, and I met Kim, and I decided we had to meet. So I went over to Jefferson School and I met Kim, and we were talking about a shared problem we had in the community, and it was our community, and it wasn't a shared problem as much as it was a shared concern about our communities unhoused. And the common denominator that we found is that our community neighbors, we just felt like they knew about the problem, but they didn't know how to help. Everyone knew that we needed, more services and more money, but how do we educate our community? So we agreed that we weren't going to solve it that day. or this decade.
Right.
But we agreed that we should meet a couple more times. And, through these meetings, we decided that we should have an event that was an education and awareness event. And out of that came Sleep Out CVILLE. Kim, am I getting that right so far?
Yeah, for sure.
Sounded good.
So one of the things that kind of struck me is last year we had started to see an increase in the unhoused population at the city center. Folks wanting a place to stay at night, folks needing shelter in cold weather, warm weather. And so obviously for liability purposes, we can't have people in the building for 24 hours a day. So we had to start putting other additional things into place to stop that from happening. That's just one side of it. Getting folks out of the building at 10 o'clock is just one thing. We're still sensitive to the fact that these people don't have a place to go. They don't have a home. So that's kind of what struck me into getting involved with the Salvation Army and also how we gave birth to Sleep Out CVILLE.
Yeah, that is such a huge undertaking. Like, were there any reservations at first? Honestly, just sort of like, wow, because you even mentioned it on how this is something that may not be solved this generation as far as solved. But I know that you have folks like the President's Council, I know City Council, everybody's trying to tackle this issue from different angles, right? So what's the approach, and what do you think that you add that you're adding to the work that's being done to try to help our unhoused population?
Well, like Kim said, we have seen an increase in our communities unhoused. Our feeding programs are almost at max. Our shelter programs are almost at max. We've seen, I think it was a 39% increase just since the end of COVID. And that, has been the impetus for us to, I'm sure most of the community has heard about our huge capital campaign where we're, going to knock down the building on Ridge Street and build a brand new 44,000 square foot facility to double our feeding and sleeping capacity.
Nice.
Most folks know we serve about 55,000 meals a year, and we have 19,000 nights of sheltering. That's 19,000 instances where a head hits a pillow at our shelter. So, and our community, our city council, our mayor have been so incredibly supportive in working with us, not just giving us a pat on the back saying, great job, Salvation Army, and great job, Jefferson School. They're actually part of the solution. And Kim and I and her host of volunteers and our host of volunteers, both at the advisory board level and executive board levels, we're teaming up to create this awareness event and teach our young people. We want people to come out to this event on March 22nd to sleep out, to come and listen. And it's not just about sleeping on the pavement or sleeping in your sleeping bag or in your tent that you bring. It's about listening to the panel discussion from our folks that used to be homeless, folks that are currently homeless, about what the root causes are, what causes homelessness, what keeps people in homelessness, what it takes to get a job. Folks that have been homeless for 4 or 5 years or 14 or 15 years without a state issued ID, how hard it is to get a state ID. Other organizations that do exist that are out there that help folks get out of homelessness. Okay. So it's a complete education event, on how to get out of homelessness, to break the cycle and what causes that. So it's not just about the physical act of sleeping out. It's the full circle about it. So that's what this event is really designed to do, is to create awareness. Number one, what can I do as a community member to help besides giving money? And all around, and we have an age limit of 14 years old. We think it's important that our younger generation really grab a hold of this and and find out what they can do at their age to help.
I have a question. When it comes to, like, most people try to do everything in their power to not be homeless. What you're asking is for people to come out of their bubble and experience pretty much, I'm gonna go ahead and say it, what they complain about on a daily basis. Like, they fought tooth and nail complaining about the homelessness for whatever reason that they're out there. And you're asking people to come out there and experience that, right? What would you have them do mentally to prepare themselves? We were talking earlier, and this is something I plan on doing with y'all. So I've purposely been laying on the floor a lot more to get used to my body being in that condition, right? Mentally. What would you talk to the listenership, our family, and say, look, this is what you need to think of before you go out, before you decide to make this commitment?
You know, that's a great question. I'm not even sure any of us can prepare. I mean, the first thing you think of is financially. Okay. Can any of us put 3 to 4 to 6 months worth of reserves away? That's the first thing that you think about. But okay, so if you can do that, great. If not, I would just start preparing yourself. Next time you're sick, next time you have the flu or you have a cold, imagine if you don't have a home. How do you prepare yourself? Or if you have a gastrointestinal issue, imagine yourself out on the street. Okay, what would you do if you were homeless and you don't have the comfort of home to take care of yourself, or you don't have the resources to go and buy the things at a drugstore or a convenience store to help take care of yourself? Have you even thought of those things when you think about our communities unhoused? Okay, most of us think about food, about shelter, about staying warm. We have so many businesses out there and so many incredibly generous neighbors that do sock drives and do coat drives. What about doing a drive for antacids, or doing a drive for things like that to help you? Now, unfortunately, at the Salvation Army, in most places, we can't give out medications, but one thing to answer your question, think about those types of things and when you're out there on the street, the creature comforts that we may take for granted at home, and explain that to your children at home, explain that to your families, to prepare yourself when you come to this event. That's one way you can prepare yourself.
Thank you. And we are talking about a Box Is Not a Home Sleep Out CVILLE, Saturday, March 22nd, from 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. at the Jefferson School City Center. Ms. Max?
Sure. Thank you so much for that response. I'm glad that you bring up the fact that we as a community need to think about this pandemic or this epidemic of homelessness, and in terms of the activity or program that you're offering in a much broader way, in a sense of what is actually causing it, right? Rather than making ourselves uncomfortable for a few hours, and kind of walking away with the facade, if you will, that we've experienced what it's like to really live as a homeless person. But I'm glad you bring that up, because I actually do some work with the homeless population here in Charlottesville. And it has been my experience that these individuals really do deal with a lot of challenges in terms of mental health disorders. It's disheartening, it's disturbing, and quite frankly, it's kind of sad to because in one sense, we feel like we are helping them by giving them a temporary place to stay overnight. And on the other hand, you see the much bigger picture and the bigger issues that just kind of putting a Band-Aid on things, because this resolves absolutely nothing if they don't get the mental health services that they need. And it brings the question of whether or not the organizations locally that are resources that are intended to help these individuals are actually doing, or worth their salt, are actually doing what they say that they're doing, and to the level that they could be doing it, right? And I'd like for you to speak to that a little bit, because it is much more about being able to pay a certain amount of money on a certain day of the month in order to keep your housing, right? I really want to dig into this because I feel like we have this conversation in Charlottesville that in the public in a way that's palpable to the people that are listening to it. And then we talk about it on a very real level behind closed doors. But the mental health issues that are impacting our homeless individuals, not all of them, but a large majority of them, is horrendous.
No, and thank you for bringing that up. And this is going to be part of the evening there as well when it comes to the panel discussion, because when it comes to homelessness, there's a lot of stereotypes out there. A lot of people think that our community unhoused has to deal with laziness or some sort of addiction, whether it be drugs or alcohol or some kind of chemical dependency. And a large part of that is true, but I liken it to a pie chart, if you will. There's a certain percentage of each one of those things, and mental illness is a challenging part of our communities unhoused. And I can only speak for our social services that we have. Our caseworkers are skilled in that aspect. We align the right community agency with our clients. If our clients want to be part of our program where they can stay with us for up to 21 days, take part in a set of goals, okay? And as we stabilize them, we help them assess their current situation, and achieving the help of another agency. And it may come through chemical dependency, or it may come through getting some sort of mental health help. We will team that person up with the right agency to help them there. So yes, we do that work. Some of our folks, because they do suffer from mental illness, we never, and we can't force someone to stay in our facility. And that's one of the tragic parts of some of the folks we work with, is we can't, even though they need to stay with us, they can't because of their mental illness. They won't. They would either rather be out on the street or just leave and go elsewhere. So yes, that is one of the most challenging parts of our communities unhoused is the mental illness part.
Now, are you at liberty to mention the partners as far as the resources that's going to be available for, like Max is saying, like for the ongoing support?
There are just too many to list. There are dozens of agencies that we work with. We work with,
but I mean, as far as for Sleep Out CVILLE, like, is there going to be a particular presence of like partners, like for this particular event?
Some will be there. Yes, some we are working on putting together the panel people that will be there, and some of the former clients. Yes.
Okay. Cool. So Sleep Out CVILLE, March 22nd, 9 to 7. Definitely. So Kimberly, Jim, talk about the sponsorship opportunities as well. You know, speaking of sort of partners and how people can get involved, because it's not only, as we said, about experiencing, a night of what it, could be like, but it's also about, like we said, providing the resources, learning more about the situation to try to resolve the situation. So there's many ways people can experience this event and help out. Right. So what are some of those other ways, when it comes to sponsorship or anything else that we may be missing on how people can be a part of this?
So there are 3 sponsorship tiers. It's the advocate sponsorship, which is $500, the hero sponsor, which is $1,000. Our champion sponsorship is $1,500. Although we are looking for sponsors and need sponsors, we are really, really hopeful just to have huge participation for this event. I just kind of want to go back 1 second. We talk about all of the deep-rooted barriers that contribute to the unhoused population, but it would be remiss of me not to acknowledge the fact that 59% of Americans are 1 paycheck away from being homeless. So that really puts it into perspective that none of us are really immune to this.
Yes.
Thank you for that.
And then if we look at it deeper, most of us don't have 3 to 6 months worth of reserves. And I say that with so much conviction. My mother lost everything in a house fire 3 years ago. And one of the things that I was most worried about, it wasn't her replacing her material things. It was, where was she going to live? The housing market is heavily saturated. The rental market is heavily saturated. I think 3 or 4 years ago, for every rental property, 60 to 65 applications go in on that one rental property. So we're not immune to this thing.
Not at all.
So I'm encouraging folks to sign up, participate. It's $10 to sign up. It'll be March 22nd from 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. I do want to shout out our great mayor who has pledged to sleep out. That's huge. And he's going to be outside in the elements with us. So I'm excited about the folks that have rolled their sleeves up and are willing to support this meaningful partnership.
Yeah, and the flyer is on our page as well, with QR code and website. But the website, ladies and gentlemen, is, and we'll post it on this feed for the show as well. But it's bit.ly, bit.ly/sleepout25. So bit.ly/sleepout25. And Kim, you mentioned something that we didn't talk about. You kind of alluded to it, but I was curious about the security, because I noticed on the flyer you said you have professional security on site all night. Right. So like, what's sort of the the conversation around that? I guess so, because I can imagine some people, even though they see that there's going to be security, some people are going to be thinking, I'm going to be outside Charlottesville, near downtown, you know what I mean? Like, so what is the conversation like when it comes to sort of easing people to let them know that, hey, like, this is an event that we're securing?
So it'll be in the Jefferson School City Center courtyard. That is a space that that can be secured better than some other places in Charlottesville. So we will have professional security on standby all night. I'm sure we will definitely let the City of Charlottesville Police Department know what's happening that night as well. That's one thing that I'm not overly concerned with. I think that the folks that are signing up to participate and to be a part of the simulated experience. But for folks that are concerned about that, we will have security on site all night.
Awesome. And for instance, I know you all provide a multitude of services, and even Jim, your branch serves Green, Albemarle, Fluvanna, Louisa, and Nelson. So is this something that's been open to the surrounding areas, like for them to participate in this, or is it more like Charlottesville centric issue?
No, this is open to anybody.
Okay.
Wherever we're open to anyone from anywhere. Church groups, businesses are coming. We have sports teams coming, area high schools. This is a great opportunity for, we start at the high school freshman level. Okay. So any group that wants to come, this is a great opportunity, both for volunteers and for participants.
Awesome. Thank you all for this information. Ms. Max, Razor, what else did y'all have on your mind?
Yeah, I don't think I have anything left. I would just encourage as many of our listening audience as possible to participate in this event, whether you're volunteering, whether you're donating money, whether you're actually being a part of Sleep Out CVILLE. I would say to participate, educate yourselves. Again, we're talking about real live human beings whose lives matter. And this event is intended to educate you and find out how we can help these people, because that's what they need is help. So that's all I have, though.
Absolutely, that's what it's about. And while we have y'all, though, like, I would be remiss if I didn't just give y'all the opportunity of anything else that you all have coming up with the organizations that you may want to promote, or just where this is where the majority of the energy is right now.
I just have one thing. I am super excited that CVILLE ID team will now be at the Jefferson School City Center Mondays and Fridays from 10 to 2. So they will be providing services for real IDs, birth certificates, driver's license, all the things that are definitely a barrier for people re-entering and the unhoused population. So Monday through Friday, 10 to 2 in the community conference room.
All right.
And if any business or organization would like to learn more about this event or anything that the Salvation Army does, please call us, ask for Jim, and I'd be happy to come out and speak with anybody.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your Sunday with us.
Thanks for having us.
Stay with us, family. We'll be right back.
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight our attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years, and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that, and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in this city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories, more people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at these issues. We can present them on IMHO. Vinegar Hill Magazine can take that a step further, and just together we can just make this thing that can be an example of how we can change the media landscape, how we can be more inclusive to get these voices in, to get these people heard. That's just one thing that doesn't happen in so many places, and it's a shame.
We think we live in a society that's very progressive, and we're talking about equity and diversity and inclusion and all these things. Still, the way that black people, and I would say, and I would argue especially black men, are portrayed by the media is incredibly dangerous, and you've seen the sort of tangible violence that it's led to over the past year.
The community can support the SIM project by first and foremost giving us an opportunity. We understand that it can be difficult to give trust right now, especially considering the current social and political environment. But this project will only be as successful as the community allows it to be. And so we ask you to give us the opportunity to do the work, critique the work, and make sure that we stay in line with the vision. Another way that the community can get behind the SIM project is through engagement. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're talking about. We want to put your stories out there. And so whether it's reading the articles written by Charlottesville Tomorrow or Vinegar Hill Magazine, or tuning in to In My Humble Opinion on Sundays on 101.3 Jams from noon to 3 p.m., either way, we want you engaged. We want you to be part of this. The community can also support the SIM project through funding. To learn more about how to support SIM, you can visit our website. Thank you for your support. Yes, sir.
Listen to Miss Max, hype girl. She the hype girl today.
Jump the gun, did you?
It's all good. It's all good because, you know, IMHO Talk Show. Tell a friend, tell a friend. All your top streaming platforms.
Yeah.
FM, social media, WVAI 101 Jams, all that good stuff. So, yeah, you know, so we closing out the top hour of the show in the bottom of this said hour. And you know, because we didn't, you know, we kicked off the show with that great information with some great guests. So, you know, just wanted to do a quick wellness check, you know, up in this piece. Yet another Sunday. They say this is the week of love, you know, so we talking about love for our community, you know, whether it's unhoused population. Our next guest is going to be talking about his brand, Love First, the movement, right? Then in the bottom of the hour, we're going to have legislative strategist, he's an activist, campaign manager, to kind of just talk to us about some of the current, you know, legislation that's been going on, particularly federally, right?
Yeah.
Particularly what's coming out of the White House. But you know, he works a lot. So his name is Jason Melendez, young gentleman that I've been seeing on different campaign trails. And so, you know, he's going to try to just join our conversation, help us make sense of things a little bit and how it impacts us. Because, you know, we always bring it home. Guys, what we talking about? Like, how does it impact CVILLE and in this area? So we're
now,
going
to come back on in 2 weeks to make sense all over again?
He's going to have to. Pretty much every day. we need somebody to answer questions every day.
Yeah. What's forecast, boss?
Right. You know, like this sort of impromptu. So I don't know if I can call it a Ask Max or we're not in particular. And Max, you know, because like this may even be Razor's advice, but you can chime in. Because this is the week of love, but it's also Super Sunday, right? And I'm going somewhere with this, so stick with me. Right. And so today the big game is the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Two black quarterbacks. One being biracial, not that should matter, but a lot of people try to bring it up.
He blackish.
Come on, y'all. Come on, y'all. We picking and choosing. We picking and choosing.
I'm picking and choosing. He blackish.
We keeping it real.
Because what Obama was black to us, right?
Yeah, he was.
Kamala was pretty close to black to us, right?
Yeah, she was blackish.
Okay, Mahomes is blackish.
Blackish.
Okay,
Yeah, blackish.
Y'all moving to Target.
Wow. But there's a lot at stake, and sports fans know exactly what I'm talking about. Like when it comes to legacies, things of that sort, right? Like I personally have a lot of Philadelphia ties. I think, yeah, Razor has Philly ties. So, you know, so I guess I'm kind of leaning towards that.
Yeah, I am.
You know, Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, all that good stuff. You know, I ain't gonna get too deep for the folks who may not follow football or whatnot. But that's not the point. My point being is on the other side of the ball, it being Patrick Mahomes is doing something, and I want to frame it like this, Max.
Okay.
Because this is bigger than football. This is like life. This is profession. This is abilities. This is legacy. So Patrick Mahomes has the potential of doing something that's never been done, which is winning 3 Super Bowls in a row. Now he's already won 3, but this one would be 3 in a row. Right. And so puts him up there with like the greatest of all time in his very short career thus far. Right. Some people, my question is why? Like why? Right. Like he seems to be an outstanding citizen. He seems to respect the game. He's entertaining, seems like a fun dude. Some people question some of his political stances. That could be it. Some people think that may be why he gets favor. Some people just say it's greatness. But at the end of the day, it's like, why wouldn't we want to see this happen? And so that leads me, Razor, to like, why do we hate greatness? Think about that. Why do we hate greatness? Because I remember just a couple years ago, Razor, everybody was on the Mahomes back. Everybody was like, oh yeah, next black quarterback. He the great, he better than Tom Brady. You know, people saying all that kind of stuff. But now that he's won 3 and about to win 3 in a row, people saying, oh, but they cheating for the Chiefs. You know, well, like I said, maybe some people don't like you know, like that his family appears to be, you know, Trump supporters. Maybe that's part of it. But it's like now it's like, no, we don't want the Chiefs to win. It's rigged. And it just makes me think, why do we hate greatness? It was
you
cool
talking more out of our
the
community.
Yes.
But
I think I'm even thinking about people in general. But of course, us in particular as a black community, it's like we'll rock with you like in the struggle. It's almost like we love the struggle, but as soon as we great, then the haters come out the woodwork.
And I
Why is
think,
that?
Charles, actually, that's just it. When a person is relatable, when the person seems more like us, I could be them, they could be me. When it feels like their representation of me is more realistic, then they're easier to love and support and advocate for and get behind, right? But when that greatness comes along, then they in some way become less like us. And I think that for those reasons, right? Because there's certain things that come along with greatness. You get more support from your counterparts. I mean, ideally, right? But it becomes less attainable, less like us, and for those reasons, we can't draw the connection anymore, and so we dislike it. We dislike what we can't be.
That's deep. That's deep.
That's it. Okay, I'm gonna answer the
About to
first.
say something crazy.
The first, the first group of people
Why you
that
looking
you
at me?
talk about. All right, so you say you had Tom Brady and you had him. So we was more for him because he had a little more melanin in his skin than Tom Brady. Now you got him and Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts got a little more black in him than he do. So that's that natural transaction in our community. You know what I'm saying? Light-skinned mixed people will tell you they had a hard time coming through high school because of the way they look, because of the way they hair and stuff. It doesn't stop just because you win Super Bowls or you're famous or you got money. That's the first part. The second part is just like Max has said, is think about when we kids and somebody start dunking, you say, man, I can dunk. You be like, you can't dunk. I'm saying you can't dunk because I can't dunk. So you're getting ready to three-peat. You're getting ready to do something and make history. Not everybody likes that new change.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that's just a part of our community. It has nothing to do with sports.
Right.
You know what I'm
That's
saying?
my
There were
point.
people who did not like the fact that Obama could be president because he was a black man, and it was kind of non-obtainable to see a black man run the most powerful country in the world, right?
That's right.
But now that Obama has gone, the only time he comes up is if the Trump presidency brings up something to try to counteract and make their stuff sound good and his sound bad, right? So I don't look in it. I want to see him break the record, right? But I want Philadelphia to win. Let me say this. I do want Philadelphia to win because of my ties there. But I would love to see the record broken. Records are made to be broken in sports. You want to see greatness in your generation.
Yeah.
You don't want to always read about it. So I'm at a catch-22. If he wins, I'm happy because I got a chance to witness it. But if he loses, I'm happy for Philadelphia.
And you know, Charles, I think sometimes it's just not that deep. Like, I'm just tired of the Chiefs winning, and I want to see another
Sometimes
Super Bowl
that's it, too.
champion. You know,
100%.
but let me ask y'all: did Jordan go through this same scenario? Okay,
Who, Michael Jordan?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. He went. You know, I couldn't. After a while, I didn't like Jordan myself just because I felt that he was always more inviting with his finances to other people than his own community.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
You know what, Razor?
He did it later on in life,
Yeah.
but when it was like called upon, like he was always whenever he was questioned about, man, do more for the black community, Jordan's responses were, and I'm just please don't nobody judge me, white people buy shoes too. Right.
Yeah, that's what he said.
That was actually what he said, right? But when you bring up stuff like that, it's like
he
you're
actually said
hating
Republicans, but yeah.
Was it Republicans?
Yeah, he said Republicans.
That's still white people, right? In black community. No, I'm saying the black community that's white people. You know what I'm saying? So let me stop.
But look though, but you made me think of something.
Yeah.
You know, else, and Max, check this out. It's almost like an age thing. It's almost it almost sounds like that when we get grown and we don't achieve our own dreams and goals, then we're more inclined to hate on those that do.
Oh, absolutely.
And I say that also because like I even think about, like, I was a youth when Jordan played, but I loved Jordan through it all.
Me too.
And I think that was probably because it was like, man, like he felt like a superhero. It was something to aspire to. It was greatness that encouraged you to do great, right? Whereas I don't have the same feeling about LeBron, and LeBron is one of the greatest too,
because it's already been done.
But it's kind of already been done. But what I'm saying is, but I see that the younger, like my kids, my sons, do hold LeBron to the esteem that I held Jordan.
Yeah.
And it almost makes me think about to where it's like it's almost like a youthful exuberance because it's happening sort of in your generation, so to speak. You know what I mean? like, so you feel like a closer tie to it.
Okay.
You know, if it happens, so I'm just thinking maybe that's also a part of it.
You know, I can understand that. And I don't feel like that in LeBron's professional career. I've developed, like, for the Chiefs, I'm like, okay, it's time to let somebody else win. I don't feel like I've developed those like anti-LeBron feelings either, but taking it back to kind of like a more deeper philosophical reason, if you will, LeBron, in my opinion, always stayed real. Podcasts, opening schools, giving back,
bringing along his friends.
Yeah, he always stayed attainable, if you will. The black guy next door.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that plays a difference.
Yeah, and that's full circle to Mahomes, right?
Mhm.
Because again, like, some people don't like the image. Like, he doesn't really seem like one of you exactly.
Yeah,
You know,
well,
like
that's
one
what
of
happened
us,
to the Ravens.
You know,
The Ravens quarterback.
Yeah.
He looked like one of us. He acted like one of us.
Right,
He didn't change up. His records were better than the dude from the Bills. He should have won MVP by all the stats, but it wasn't about the stats. It was because he didn't fall in line and do what Jordan and the rest of them did. You know, so
yeah, good combo, y'all. Hey, you know, don't wait till it's too late to recognize great. That's a saying that I heard.
So who your money on?
Look at Max. Trying to get us in all kinds of trouble on this air. You ain't got to answer that. You ain't got to incriminate yourself.
I ain't. My child's support to go up.
Who would you like to see win?
Oh man, like, well, you know, like I said, I have, you know, family ties like with the Philadelphia Eagles, and so I think my heart would like that the most. But how can I say it? But sort of like ego wise, or you know, like legacy wise, like I would love to say, that I experienced and I witnessed, you know, the greatest quarterback of all time. I witnessed the first ever 3 in a row.
Right.
No. Wait a minute. I got called foul on that one. We've already witnessed the greatest quarterback of all time. That was Brady. Just because your team did more does not make you the greater quarterback.
True that.
Because if he was the greater quarterback, he'd have won MVP going to the Super Bowl. So I can't go.
And you as a football man know, but you as a football man knows that quarterbacks get too much credit and they get too much blame.
Absolutely.
You know,
absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah,
good stuff.
So I mean, in my opinion, I'm kind of rooting for the Eagles, but honestly, it's a deal where we kind of already won.
Yeah,
2 black quarterbacks, opportunity for 3-peat.
And the New York Giants fans got to be hurting because Saquon Barkley could very well be the MVP.
Yeah,
you know, of the Super Bowl, and he I think he was number 3 in the voting for even the regular season MVP. And it usually always goes to quarterbacks because again, like, they get too much credit and too much blame.
Kansas City and Philadelphia, that's kind of black versus white too.
You know, if Max is time for break. Where's Eddie Griffin over there? You know Eddie Griffin is from Kansas City, right?
Yeah,
the comedian Eddie Griffin.
That's where his ship stopped off at.
Oh Lord. All right, here we go. We'll be right back next hour on IMHO Talk Show if Razor didn't get us canceled. All right.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion
with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion
with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion
with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 1013 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion
with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 1013 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion
with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 1013 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion
with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 1013 Jams.
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight our attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years, and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that, and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in this city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories. More people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at these issues. We can present them on IMHO. Vinegar Hill Magazine can take that a step further, and just together we can just make this thing that can be an example of how we can change the media landscape, how we can be more inclusive to get these voices in, to get these people heard. That's just one thing that doesn't happen in so many places, and it's a shame.
We think we live in a society that's very progressive, and we're talking about equity and diversity and inclusion and all these things. Still, the way that black people, and I would say, and I would argue especially black men, are portrayed by the media is incredibly dangerous, and you've seen the sort of tangible violence that it's led to over the past year.
The community can support the SIM project by first and foremost giving us an opportunity. We understand that it can be difficult to give trust right now, especially considering the current social and political environment. But this project will only be as successful as the community allows it to be. And so we ask you to give us the opportunity to do the work, critique the work, and make sure that we stay aligned with the vision. Another way that the community can get behind the SIM project is through engagement. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're talking about. We want to put your stories out there. And so whether it's reading the articles written by Charlottesville Tomorrow or Vinegar Hill Magazine, or tuning in to In My Humble Opinion on Sundays on 101.3 Jams from noon to 3 p.m., either way, we want you engaged. We want you to be part of this. The community can also support the SIM project through funding. To learn more about how to support SIM, you can visit our website. Thank you for your support.
Yes, indeed. Sir Charles.
Miss Max.
Razor.
In the booth, in the building, one more again. For the people, y'all, for the people. IMHO Talk Show. You know how to find us everywhere. You listen to FM or you stream, whatever. We there, Miss Max?
Whatever.
That's right. Whatever. Hey, we're gonna keep the show rolling though. This is the week of love, as they say. Amongst many things. So we have a gentleman with us right about now, none other than the real Sco. He is the founder of Love First, the movement. So he's here today to talk to us about his new music, about their clothing line, about the events that they put on, and just like what it's all about, because people may see the brand and whatnot. And so, so we linked up. Thought it'd be a great idea for him to just come on and talk more about it for those who may not be familiar with it and may want to get down with it. So Sco, how you feeling this afternoon, my man?
No, I'm feeling good, man. Feeling good, feeling great.
Welcome to the show. There you go.
Yeah.
Look, I like him.
That's number one.
Look.
That's number one, because regardless, we gonna be that.
Right.
For sure. So Love First, the movement. let the folks know what that is about exactly. Start wherever you want to start, but act like nobody's ever heard of it, nobody ever seen it.
Right.
What's your sales pitch? What is Love First the movement?
Well, Love First is its own thing. You know, that's the main reason why Love First is what it is just so that people can realize it without asking too many questions. You know, I mean, if you really have questions about what Love First is, you might need to search within yourself to, you know, to figure out why you asking that question, because it's exactly what it says. You know, Love First is truly the movement. I'm a firm believer in God, and love and God is synonymous.
Right.
Yeah.
So that is just something that I feel like our youth and a lot of our adults need on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To base a lot of decisions and their thoughts off of, and try to do it through my music as well.
Yeah.
Promoting positivity and things in that nature.
Good stuff.
Oh, yes, indeed. So when you're in the entertainment realm, you're in the culture realm, whether it's fashion or whatnot. So like what experience did you have for that name to stick? Because I find a lot of times, especially in entertainment, like guys may start with a certain name, or they like may click up with certain crews, and you got different names, whatever the case is.
Right.
But so there's so many that you could have chose. But like you said, it's self-explanatory. But what makes it so self-explanatory? Like how did that name stick?
Well, it stuck once I started seeing the responses. Live performing. In my normal gear as a young artist, people tend to try to figure you out. Before you get on the mic, they're like, okay, is he a gangster type rapper, or is he conscious, and my music at the time was a cross in between. And I just got tired of explaining myself, So, people are saying, hey, well, who is he with, or who is he around? And, and at the end of the day, being from California and coming to Virginia, it was just, Virginia does a good job of judgment.
Virginia is Virginia.
Virginia is Virginia. So, I just got tired of explaining myself, man. And as it moves forward, my performances now, it's more of an outward expression rather than just trying to make it, just trying to make it here, just trying to make it there. It's more of a true movement, similar to what our forefathers did in the 70s. And so.
Gotcha. Now, what came first? Like, what was the first inspiration for this path? Was it like a love for fashion? Was it a love for music? What?
Well, it started with like inspiration. I mean, like I said, I am an artist. Shout out my boy Jamez. Jamez Payne. He came up with the idea of spreading it through the clothing.
Okay.
Yeah, as far as me expressing myself to help children and women to understand that, hey, we're here as men, Black men, positive as well, and we can rap.
Okay.
Gotcha. We are joined by Darrell Sco of Love First, the movement. Yes, indeed.
So was that a difficult decision for you, though? When you think about rap culture, different genres, and what people like to hear, the songs about the guns and the drugs and the big girls and stuff like that. And so I'm no rapper by any means, but I imagine but I imagine that those that are, when they're trying to decide who am I and what message am I going to put out into the world, they got to bring pause when it's like, okay, I'm kind of going against the grain here.
Right.
And am I going to have an audience? Are they going to receive my music? How is this going to impact my success?
Right.
You go through all that thought process, trying to figure yourself out.
Well, as a young artist, that's how it started. It's like, do I want to come off hard, or do I want to come off soft, or what? And this and that? And like I said, I just got tired of playing that game, or coming out with a certain song because I felt like, who wanted to hear it,
Right.
Of course you have inspirations when you first start out and you want to kind of mimic your inspirations. And after a while, I'm like, man, I just want to do me, because it's not that many artists that are it does take a lot of bravery, you
Yeah.
know, to not really worry about who has
That's
to say
right.
what. And it's worked, you know. I remain an individual, and everything has worked since then.
There you go.
That's what's up. That's what's up. So, so tell us about, you know, like the music a little bit more about it. Tell us about the discography. You know, like some of your experiences in you know, within the industry. You know what I mean, or like some of your top projects that may come to mind, and of course, how folks can find the music. You know.
Okay. Well, a lot of my music can't be found. You know, the most of my music cannot be found because, you know, I make hundreds and hundreds of songs. I'm extremely talented with that, you know, when it comes to creation. You know, I draw and things like that. So, but as the music that I've monetized is out, of course, on Apple Music and pretty much every major platform, YouTube. My favorite project that I've came up with was called Algorithm Problem Solved. It came out right around COVID. And the ironic thing about that is that, you know, years leading up to that project, I was getting no attention with the Love First, you know, zero attention. You know, everybody, oh, he's corny. Oh, he's just coming up with something, you know, that's not true to him or this and that. And then here comes COVID, you know, and then when COVID hit, it seemed like everybody was looking for love, you know, or some kind of support. And that project ended up being in the Source magazine and
Really
shooting my career off, for the most
good
part.
for you.
My latest project is called Mosaic Groove, which is also out on our platforms. And that was something I produced on my own. Trying to paint a picture of all my piece, like what I consider my piece is labeled in each track. And as we all know how Mosaic is, it looks like a whole bunch of different pieces to make one big
that's deep
vision. So, and that's a beautiful album. Y'all check it out.
That's what's up. That's what's up. Yeah. So the music. So you talked about the impact and whatnot. You know, like what you want people to feel and get from the movement, whether it's through the music or whatnot, right? So talk a little bit more about the fashion piece, and you know, shout out
Jamez, boy, Jamiggity Mez, boy.
Your partner Jamez.
He ain't playing around.
Like, so what's that? You know, more so like when it comes to the appearance of the clothing and who is it for? Is it for the B-boys? Is it for women, children? You got everything, you know what I mean? Like what's the impact? Because you talked about the music, but what's the impact, and like what have y'all done with the clothing? How have y'all spread that?
The actual clothing is doing for everyone else that is brave enough to wear it what it has done for me, as far as it gives you a chance to be seen and understood off the break. You know, nobody has to ask too many questions. It does stand out. You know, you see Love First is nice and large on the t-shirt. Our logo, we try to put on, you know, on a large scale so that you can see. As far as moving the brand, we've done fashion shows in Carolina for the most part. Shout out to Fayetteville and surrounding counties. Yeah, and to see the women in our dresses and our garments, you know, and they're so positive about what they're doing when they're walking. They're asking questions like, okay, you know, I am a model, so I guess I got to wear this designer stuff. But once they see the photos, and one of our favorite models, Jacqueline, she's a young model, but she's grown over, and to be able to do things overseas, represent our brand. And we have a few ambassadors for, you know, our company, but just to see these Black women wearing something so positive and making them feel beautiful just means the world to us.
And I love that. I'll say, I really like the way that artists take their art and attach that to clothing, and people can walk around with I personally am very conscious about what I choose to wear on my body. I have a sweatshirt on today that says Psalms 23, but it's kind of designed to mimic like Jordan with the number 23. And like I said, I'm very conscious about what I choose to wear and display to the world because people are forming an impression of you.
Right.
But no, I think that's wonderful when you can blend your art to clothing like that, especially with such a positive message. So
absolutely,
personally, I'm a creator, so I'm connecting in that way. So yeah, it's
and
beautiful.
children as well. In Fluvanna, we've given children a chance to express themselves in the classroom. With our t-shirts. Of course, I have my daughters, my young daughters in there, and my son as well, to wear their truth on them, because that's how we raised them to be. My wife and I, and it's a beautiful thing to see the kids that don't even have anything to do with us, are asking for a shirt because they want to express it as well. So it's a nice thing.
Look, man, like speaking of which, like we may have to play, you got a song called Let It Go.
Absolutely.
Hey, my daughter, 7-year-old daughter, walks around randomly singing this song. I ain't even joking. She got it on her iPad. She's be walking around, but she be playing with, like with her slime. She loves slime. She'd be at her desk playing with slime, and she'll be like, "Let it go, let it go, Sco, let it go."
Yeah. Shout out to Mina too. Shout out to Mina.
Yeah. So we are joined by the real Sco, Love First the movement. Now, so like sort of off air, we were talking too because I wanted to bring Razor in the conversation as well. But what shifted as well, like during your time in Virginia, because you've been in different spots. You were talking about that you attended VSU,
right,
and stuff like that. And it sounds like that there was a shift to where like maybe you got more serious about the brand and the career, at that point.
Right.
But then of course, coming to Charlottesville and doing work in Charlottesville as well, thinking about love first is big everywhere. But we talk a lot on this show about businesses, whether it's music or whether it's community organizations or whatever. If we would put the love first, we could get so much more done. Like, so it's not, so it's sort of bigger than, right? It's bigger than music and entertainment or whatever. It's like, think of how much we could get done and how positive the world would be if we actually put love first. And like you said, like that's even biblical.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So I wanted you to dig a little deeper in that about like some of the things that you saw. 'Cause I heard you mention shows and whatnot, but just your experience of being like, yeah, this is the point where it's like, this is what I'm gonna devote the majority of my energy to. You know what I mean? Because the world needs this.
Well, it started actually in my household. I was a young kid with young children, and a girlfriend and rent and groceries and
there you go. That'll do
it. And laundry,
diapers,
and dishes, and trash, but that's where it started for me. I felt like, love first is spelled LUV for a reason. Because we feel like it's about the individual.
Okay.
It's not necessarily about me. It's about you and you and you, And so I was at a low point in my life around that time when I had young kids. And the only way I got back on my feet was to pay attention to the things I needed to pay attention to as far as what made me happy or, making sure that my situation was straight so that I can expand and inspire outward, So love first is not necessarily like, hey, I love you like Barney. It ain't you love me. Nah, that's just unrealistic. But it's more so about every individual focusing on their love so that everything else just reflects.
You may not give a different answer, but how do you speak about that when you take it to the streets, literally? Gun violence, black on black crime.
It's hard to. Well, it's not hard to do. It's just hard for. I don't get a response. If I do speak to some cats from the street or whatever, that everybody's looking at me like, man, go ahead. We ain't no love around here, which I understand. But when I leave and they got a few minutes to think to themselves, they realize, I always get it. It'll be a couple days later, a couple weeks later, be like, man, I ain't get it at first, but now I really understand it, So, I'm no politician, but, all I can do is what I can do with what I have. So.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that is something tough to be able to balance. Like, what kind of support network? Talk about that, because I think that's important, for folks to recognize as well. Because you talked about being in a place like Petersburg, right? Like during a time where it may have been at the height of its like violence and drug epidemic. So and you talked about needing to be focused, right? And needing to find your money path.
Right.
And for you to choose positivity says a lot, about you, but go ahead and shout out like your family or something, because you had to have some sort of support structure, or maybe it was just your faith.
I gave up. I gave up with all the nonsense. I was just like, look, I'm tired of trying to figure things out. I just need to.
That happens when we hit the bottom, ain't it?
It do. I laid out on the floor. I remember the day I couldn't take it no more. I just said, all right, and I'm just like, look, I'm just gonna focus on a certain purpose so that it'll be able to guide me through whatever issues I have. Of course, everybody runs into individuals that may not like them so much, but Love First has got me through a lot of things.
Yeah.
A lot of different things, a lot of, I just try to stay optimistic in situations like that. It's just like, okay, especially if it's another brother coming at me sideways, it's kind of like, man, I got genuine love for you because, our ancestors struggled the same way. So it ain't like they can't get that serious, anything outside of harming my family.
Jams is your boy DJ Benjamin.
Can be reconciled.
So how about when we talk about obviously Love First person naturally thinks from one person to another, but how about that self-love? Because that's one of the things that, especially with my kids, but my younger boys, and talk to them about sometimes, they have negative thoughts about what they can't do. This is too hard. I can't do this. I can't do that. And I try to explain to them that would you ever tell me, or would you ever speak to me or daddy in that way? Would you tell us what we can't do? Would you tell us we're not good enough? Would you tell? No, I wouldn't. Of course not. Matter of fact, one of them said, why would I ever say that? I was like, well, you need to talk to yourself the same way. You need to love yourself the same way, not speak to you, treat yourself kindly and speak positive to yourself. So when you talk about that love first, what do people need to bring into perspective in terms of loving yourself first as well?
Jamming at midday, I am your boy DJ Ben.
Gotta start with forgiving.
Valentine's Day is Friday. Make sure y'all on top of y'all game this year.
Everybody done had the moment.
Don't wait till Wednesday, Thursday.
That stick in the back of our minds, like, and prevent us from moving forward. Sticking back, man, I shouldn't have did that, or So I would say the individual should definitely forgive themselves and then practice on forgiving others too, because everybody has problems.
Absolutely.
Look, you're giving a whole therapy session right now. I'm just trying to let you know.
Yeah, and I'm, this one's for free. You know what I'm saying? Next one we might have to, but yeah, just that's how I feel.
Okay.
At least. Just for everybody forgiveness is real hard, because that leaves you vulnerable. But I'm living proof that vulnerability can teach you a lot.
That's right. That's right.
Everybody's afraid of being vulnerable, and
hey,
still
Charles,
can be smart.
Charles, let me talk to him for a second.
What you got?
No, I've purposely been quiet over here, right?
Purposely.
Yeah, purposely. Your humbleness is your strength.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And too often when somebody has their platform, other Black men can step into that and dismantle it, so to speak, or people not. I have a strong personality, so sometimes when I talk, focus gets on me, but listening to you and the conversations that we had, you coming from San Diego over to Virginia, you taking on the responsibility once your girlfriend got pregnant, turn your girlfriend into your wife, create a company where you stood your ground, the source recognized you grew. Like Max said, you're giving out therapy sessions for people, like in humbleness, right? I want to give you your flowers for me right now. I'm impressed.
Appreciate it, bro.
You know what I'm saying?
Appreciate
I
that.
love seeing stuff like that. So I purposely was quiet because I wanted to make sure that the questions that Charles and Max were asking you, the way that you were answering them, they're reaching to somebody. I don't care if it's a person that's walking around with a pistol right now, person that got vengefulness in their heart. Like, I was there. I was that person walking around, right? And I'm telling you, I would be able to listen to you. Now, the ego may make them not listen to you right then and there in real time. But I'm telling you, the softness that you give, and when I say softness, I'm not talking about soft in a bad way. I'm just talking about you're making it very palatable to hear what you're saying without getting distracted by the noise.
Right.
So I just want to say, man, like I'm impressed.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, I appreciate that. It's a real thing.
Yes, indeed. So we have been talking to the real Sco about Love First, the movement, and like hope you're more informed now, and you if it's your first time hearing about it, you know what it offers.
Coming up next, I got y'all with that 25-minute lunch break
and the events.
Yeah.
And,
speaking of that,
serving the culture in general. Yeah, so that's what I was about to go. What you got coming up?
Let me ask you real quick. Where does Sco come from? Like, is your middle name Roscoe or something like that?
No, close. Say no.
She found the blackest Sco name she could think of.
You know
Said he got to be Roscoe. He looked like a Roscoe.
Not during this month, man. We could have did that in March or something, man. In February, no, my name is Francisco. That's my first name, my father's middle name.
Gotcha.
But I felt like I was actually a freshman in college, and there was an upperclassman in my room that ran a lot of the campus. He's just like that guy. But long story short, he was like, what's your name, man? So I told Francis, I'm not calling you that. What they call you? I said Cisco. They call me Cisco. Family call me Cisco. Nah, man, I ain't calling you no Cisco, man. I'm gonna call you Sco. And I said, nah, I ain't going with Sco. You know? But once I started rapping, I'm like, okay, maybe I could turn it into an acronym, and self-control opportunity is what SCO stands for.
Okay.
So, and, comes hand in hand with Love First. I felt like, hey, I could control this. Ain't nobody gonna tell me I'm soft. You know what I'm saying? I don't care. They tell me I'm soft. They can try it. You know what I'm saying? If they want to, but it ain't necessary. Let's keep it as far as possible away from the negative, something that'll bring negativity. So let's go.
Respect.
I gotta respect.
And the real DAREEL is because Facebook wouldn't let me do the real SCO. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So I like the real, they got a ring to it. So the real SCO is what we are.
All right.
There you go. And now I think you were about to mention something y'all have coming up, right? You got some events coming up?
Yes.
Or music coming out, or what's up?
Shout out to Fluvanna County. Shout out to Blue 53, Sports Bar and Grill. The owner Giacomo, he's a good dude. We are having an event. They're having us there next weekend on the 15th, February 15th, the day after Valentine's Day.
Okay.
For a dance party, old school dance party. And my old school is a great old school for for a dance party. We talking hits between, the early 2000s, maybe late 90s, just dance vibes. Trying to inspire people to dance more, which is one of my singles off the last project called Dance More. And then there's a remix on the newest project. We're just trying to inspire people to get out. A lot of inspiration people focus on are with the children. We tend to lean more towards the parents of the children, because it's hard to raise kids. So we try to give them a time to come out for free and dance more. I don't know about y'all, but when I dance, it releases something in me. I move, I hear so two-step here, two-step there. I forget about all the problems and the drama. So that's what we're trying to focus on. Just get people out dancing and eating, and everything.
Having a good time.
Yeah. Okay. What's up?
I think
DJ Next to None will be there that night.
Okay. I think Charles is going to play one of your singles, but if you had to describe the sound of your music, like is it a little bit of Cali mixed with
Well, it's a little bit of everything. I'm from everywhere, to be honest with you. I'm West Indian. My father is from St. Martin. My mother is Southern. She's from North Carolina, from Kinston, North Carolina. I'm a military child, so we traveled a lot. I lived in Japan for a little while. So my music reflects all of that.
101 Jams
really
is your
does.
boy
I mean,
DJ Ben jamming it.
I don't have a Southern dialect,
If you are
but
in the Southern
I do
soul,
have Southern
April the 12th, we
ways
might
in my
want to lock
music.
this date
Or I
in.
may
I got Miss
hear somebody say
Poochie
something
coming
like
all the way
"Great Day," and I'll turn into a whole
in.
song. You know.
To Elm Lodge in Lynchburg, Virginia.
So my music
So if you
reflects
want a ticket,
exactly
just
who I
let
am, which
me
is
know.
just
Hit me
crazy.
up.
I got too much going on.
DJ_Ben_Jamin
I'm
_
the music I
34
create,
on
as far as
Instagram,
producing
Facebook,
wise,
Kenyon Benjamin.
I
That's
can't put a label on it. I don't know what to call it.
TIMYARN, last name Benjamin,
But yeah,
That's good. You know, something refreshing to the music
Miss
scene.
Poochie coming to
Yep.
town,
Gotta
baby.
stay original.
Yes,
Mhm.
sir. And I got her song right here.
So
Give it to
speaking of
him
which,
right here and only here
you
on
know, if there's
101.3
nothing else
Jams,
to
baby.
discuss, you know, we want to send you out tonight, and I'll let you introduce a song if you want us to play. You know, and you can shout out, whether you want to shout out the producer, the engineer.
Yeah.
You know, got to thank God, my mama.
Yeah.
You know how rappers do.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, but we're a little different over here. You know, we're a little different than every other rapper. You know. Yeah, this is one of my favorite songs. It's actually a remix to the original, "Stay Lifted," featuring Friday Love. We did a remix to it. This is the song that I would like to be played for the world to hear. Produced by Stretch Bino. Hopefully everybody has heard of Stretch Bino. He's a pretty good producer out of Fluvanna County. You know, we try to little tight knit over there. A group of artists that, you know, have been doing it for years. I love to shout them out. Shout out Skyscrapers. Shout out Wartime Fitness.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, shout
We
out
got the whole crew over
there. We shout out the FLDR. You know, shout out Fork Union. I love Fluvanna County, man. I moved out there and I was just like, man, this is it. Shout out 640. Shout out my boy Bo. Head Buster Nation. Taking over.
Razor, what do you know about that, Razor? You know, Headbuster is a motorcycle. Razor used to be in a motorcycle gang, but his wife made him quit.
You got any songs about snitching?
Nope. Matter of fact, I didn't hear anything.
All right, well, bro, appreciate you. Keep up the great work.
Yeah.
And we're going to go ahead and get into this song, man, but continue blessings.
Amen.
We can win without falling down. We can win without falling down. We can win without falling down. Oh,
happens all day. I needed time for myself like I'm all day. I won't even make it all pay. Making small pay, now I'm living vivid dream. It's not the same as the original, this the remix version. We're like through troubled times, guaranteed I had a purpose to make it to a point to where influence is in person. I'm only feeling better cause I've been through something worse.
I don't know what you're going through, but I do know that you gotta stay. You gotta stay. You gotta stay.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion
with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
Time we spend breaking down and then we get up again. We'll go through it on a sacrifice, try to get it right. You don't understand. Yes, we go through it just say.
Y'all know this,
okay. We'll go through it. We'll get through it day by day. We'll go through it.
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight our attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years, and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in this city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories, more people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at these issues. We can present them on IMHO. Vinegar Hill Magazine can take that a step further, and just together we can just make this thing that can be an example of how we can change the media landscape, how we can be more inclusive to get these voices in, to get these people heard. That's just one thing that doesn't happen in so many places, and it's a shame.
We think we live in a society that's very progressive, and we're talking about equity and diversity and inclusion and all these things. Still, the way that black people, and I would say, and I would argue especially black men, are portrayed by the media is incredibly dangerous, and you've seen the sort of tangible violence that it's led to over the past year.
The community can support the SIM project by first and foremost giving us an opportunity. We understand that it can be difficult to give trust right now, especially considering the current social and political environment. But this project will only be as successful as the community allows it to be. And so we ask you to give us the opportunity to do the work, critique the work, and make sure that we stay in line with the vision. Another way that the community can get behind the SIM project is through engagement. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're talking about. We want to put your stories out there. And so whether it's reading the articles written by Charlottesville Tomorrow or Vinegar Hill Magazine, or tuning in to In My Humble Opinion on Sundays on 101.3 Jams from noon to 3 p.m., either way, we want you engaged. We want you to be part of this. The community can also support the SIM project through funding. To learn more about how to support SIM, you can visit our website. Thank you for your support.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion
with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
I am HO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion
with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
It's Monday.
Guess who? Guess who it is?
We back.
I mean, I told you we had a countdown. We did the drop.
We did it all.
I mean, I was on autopilot, Max. Like I wasn't trying to set you up or nothing. I was just on autopilot.
Good interview. The last interview was really good. I mean, you know, we do. I think we do well in general, but I love positive interviews and helping to spread those good vibes. So
that definitely was that. Definitely was that. Like, so what's next? What are we doing here? I mean, like y'all waiting on me to say something. What I'm gonna do, Razor?
Look, I told you I'm ready.
You the elder statesman. You supposed to be.
But I'm ready to go. We got some dialogue. I'm ready to get crazy.
Oh man.
Tell you what's on my mind.
Oh Lord. That's no. You sure we want to do this?
Yeah.
What's happening? What we talking about?
Let's hit them with some questions. It's been a minute. Miss Max Celia. People.
It's the questions.
It's the questions.
It's the questions.
We have a Ask Max fresh off the press. It is so relevant.
It is, and you know what? It's actually opportune because I don't think that, and this is our own fault. We've really recognized Black History Month. This month, our live shows really recognize it in the way that maybe we should have. And I say maybe. No, I got to set it up, Razor.
Okay,
be patient.
This is radio.
Be patient. Okay. Because rudeness. The question for today is whether or not we still need a Black History Month. You know, and what's ironic about that is that during the break we had to say maybe we should talk about Black History Month, and I don't know if that's just us being absent-minded or I'm sure it would have came back around, but and I'll be honest with you, this year Black History Month did sneak up on me, like, oh wait, it's February 2nd. That's right, it's Black History Month. Don't judge me. But that's the question for today: is whether or not we still need Black History Month, and to my understanding, the current administration has made mention that they may do away with all what would we call this, DEI, Black and minority type recognitions, holidays, different things like that, the acknowledgement of those things. And so if he chooses to take away Black History Month, does it matter? Is he taking it away? What's the deal? Do we need it? How do y'all feel about that?
I mean, depends who you asking, who you talking to.
I don't think we need his permission. You know, I don't think we need this. Oh, my bad.
I'm proud of you.
Oh, no. So it's because I'm thinking about all the times my mom and grandma got dressed up to go to George Washington Carver or Piedmont, where I went to do the Black History events. Like it was something they look forward to, and it's because we're so far removed from the struggle the you know, the real struggle, not the fictitious struggle that we're ashamed. Our younger generation is ashamed to say that their people went through. So if you allow people to start erasing your history and you accept that, because that's almost like asking, do we need permission to be Black? In my mind, right? And you don't. But if you decide to erase that, then as minority people, we need to stop celebrating 4th of July. You know, we need to stop celebrating. Right. So, I mean, because it's going to be one of those things, like the more that you allow somebody to do to you, when you decide to say enough is enough, you've lost. You've lost your footing. So one, we need to stop asking for permission to be who we are. And two, you need to stop looking for somebody to give you free holidays or paid stuff for these type things, because that's where the problem comes in at. It's not the fact that we celebrate, it's the fact that we're looking for resources because of it, because they give it for something else. You know what I'm saying? Like, honestly, there are so many things that I disagree with from the administration that I have to realize that it is a reality if I take and look at it from their vantage point. I'm not going to let you do this because you don't honor and respect it no way. He say that we get in the uproar, but in reality, it's truth. You know, so then why are you going to complain here locally, Charlottesville? It was an uproar when people were going to lose the church and stuff over there by the dairy market. And then they've learned that as long as you just wait long enough, we stop fighting. We stop saying something. We stop showing
that's
up.
very true.
You know, so, I mean, I'm nobody's activist or nothing like that, but I am a realist when it comes to the facade of we care about ourselves, you know?
So what are we saying? Where you said let it go? We don't need it. We celebrate ourselves. What are
we
we saying?
need to, like you said, we need to celebrate it. Like if you believe, those that believe in it, but you know, keep pushing forward. Keep having chiams. Keep having anything Blacks that, or any minority group that makes you feel like you're representing yourself. Doesn't even have to be, that's the problem. Stop representing your ancestors and represent yourself sometimes, right? Because your ancestors give you a history, but your decisions give you your future.
Do you have the same response for those generations that are a couple generations your senior?
For how far? Like my parents or my grandparents?
Grandparents. Because I mean, I could see where some of them actually need this. You know,
oh no, I'm saying we should, for those that want to keep it going, you definitely keep it going. Don't worry about what society or the atmosphere tells you. I'm about to cancel this. How are you gonna cancel something that I want to celebrate? That don't even make sense.
Okay.
That'd be like telling us we can't be Christians because of whatever. Like, no, I'm gonna be Christian because I want to be Christian because this is what I accept. It's the same thing when it comes to the programs that Mr. Alexander comes in here and shows us that they support, and the things that we looked forward to, at one time of celebrate. Now we look forward to them to get a day off from work. You know what I'm saying? So the problem is not the people that's trying to cancel it. The problem is the people that claim that they love it. That's the problem. Yeah, that's just my take.
I got you. Cool. I guess it's on me before Max closes out.
I don't know that I even have an answer yet.
Well, I agree with a lot of what Razor said, but my take will vary. And I think another side of it is that what we got to be careful about as a people. And of course, this is like Max said, this is referencing all minority group or, special interest groups, whatever you want to call them, holidays, right? So for us in particular, we're talking about Black History Month being one of those, and how the federal government does not want to recognize it anymore as national holiday. And pretty much, as I've already said, we're not, like recognizing these types of holidays. So firstly, though, let me say, do we need them to? Absolutely, we don't need them to. I even saw a meme that said, "Dear America, I don't need your permission to celebrate Black history." So in that regard, no, of course we don't. It's the same thing with our school systems. It's like your household, your family has to impart certain knowledge and wisdom, and you shouldn't expect your public schools to do so. Because again, public is just that. Public is supposed to be something that's sort of generalized for everybody, just a standard kind of thing. So we always are in that position where we should be choosing what we educate and celebrate on at that level. That being said, the flip side to that thing, Max, that we got to be extremely cautious about, and I'm speaking this from a kind of troubled spirit right now, because I even heard the honorable minister multiple times alluding to support of Trump, and I've kind of brushed it off, but more and more is happening, and I'm a person that understands why Black people would feel like that. Yes, we need less government because government can impede our progress if we're too dependent on it. And y'all know me, I don't blame the thing because somebody misuses it. It's not the thing's fault, right? Like, so again, that's on us to empower each other and educate each other on how we utilize the system to our advantage and not let the system use us, right? So like, but I get that. So I say all that to say that we got to be very careful, because what we are allowing by just blowing it off and saying, oh, well, we don't need their permission to do it anyway, or whatever. It's not a big deal. It's just a month and it's the shortest month anyway. You know, we can say all those things, but the devil is always in the detail. Always follow that money trail. And what's happening in this instance, and it's replicated in a lot of other instances, is that we will succumb to white supremacy if we aren't vigilant about stuff like this. So again, we got to be able to separate, Razor, the difference between it just being about we don't care if they celebrate it, and realize that the people in power are doing that because they are white males who want white supremacy to make America great again. Like, that's what this is about. Look at all the moves that they're making. And so that's what I'm saying, like, to my people, it's like, and I got a lot of brothers I be talking to, and they be like, oh no, Trump, you know, Trump is a good thing. Like look at all these oppressive systems that he's getting rid of. And I'm like, but the people in his inner circle are the lineage of the most oppressive people to Black people ever. So you saying that this man represents getting rid of your oppression? Come on. We gotta be smarter.
I got you.
Like, so to me, that's what it more represents, is slowly peeling away that fabric. And just because it's something that's symbolic, we got to realize that the actual substance behind it is the rise of that white supremacy.
Before Max go, I want to say this last thing. I think that one, and I know I'm gonna catch flack behind this one. I think one of the things that has weakened us was once our strength became our weakness, and that is our inclusiveness. Anytime somebody has an issue, they try to relay it over to the Black struggle. And even when you were talking just now, we're talking about Black History Month, but you started talking about how any minority situation can be affected. I think that's part of our problem. It's okay to say Black and stay in the realm of Black. Doesn't mean, like you told me before, that we can't include others to make the mission happen, but our verbiage and our mindset needs to be home first, water your own grass, and then what you can help do on the outskirts, you do. But that's not the way we talk about it. The Negro College Fund became everybody's thing. Whenever somebody had a problem, they relayed, regardless of what alphabet we was talking about, they related to the Black struggle. And that has weakened us because it spread us too far. The strength of things like the Black Panther Party and things of that nature were because they were tight knit, you know, like our very first show that I was talking about, you got 5 fingers. They're not as strong as when you ball them together and you got a fist. You know what I'm saying? That was the very first show that we had. And I sincerely believe that. But when you talk that way nowadays, you become an anomaly. You become a unicorn a lot of times in your own family, because the world that they have agreed to partake of does not mean that they believe in self-preservation. You know what I'm saying? They see it as, oh, we all together, we one people. You know, that is not America's reality. America's reality is color-based, from the applications that you write to your banking system, to your loans, to even your life insurance. You know, everything is color-based. So if that's the game that's being played, we are absolute fools to try to play it or make it sound any other way.
So Max, you go ahead and close us out as we up against this hour. What you want to add? Do we need it, Miss Mac?
You know, I think some people that are anti-black, in my humble opinion, listen to the show because they can get game for free, right?
Yeah.
I agree with most everything that both Razor and Charles have said. I do think that we as a black people should not need someone else's endorsement in order to celebrate or acknowledge our history, who we are, our culture, victories, and different things like that. The sad part about that is that those naysayers realize that we are a short-term memory people. A lot of us are, and that, as Razor mentioned earlier, we only fight so far. Some of us only fight so far. Some of us do have a line in the sand. Some of us, just we in it until the fight until it gets so dirty and so laborious, and then we tap out, right? So I say all that to say that unfortunately, I do think that we shouldn't, but I do think we need these holidays and acknowledgments to stay in place, because without it, our people forget. The memories fade, the fight diminishes, the importance is less. Again, I'll use myself as an example. It was about February 2nd or 3rd before I was like, oh yeah, that's right, it's Black History Month. And if not saying this is entirely true, but just as an example, if my calendar didn't say it, would I have recognized it or noticed it so quickly? And would it have been, something that, what I'm saying, we would have celebrated throughout the month? And so if we take those things away, and the powers that we're up against realize this, we become short term, we become less engaged, we fade away to some degree in terms of honoring and acknowledging and celebrating who we are. Weakens our fight, and all goes towards this attack against us. Sadly, I think that is more of the truth than not.
That's deep. Thank you for that.
What do you think, Razor?
Perfect way to
Is
It's 2:00 now.
Yeah, what that mean to me?
You want to take a break? You want to take a quick break?
Yeah. Nah, it's sad because
It is
I know
sad.
my grandmother, my mother would never thought we would be having this conversation right here. Like, we get to a point that we don't think we need to celebrate ourselves. And as Charles' grandma said, it's a sad frog that won't praise his own pond.
And doubly sad is that we'll call our lack of celebration progress.
Oh, we don't need it no more. We not there no more. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The art of war is active.
Yeah. It's an instant gratification, I think, is a big problem nowadays, right? Because everything's at your fingertips.
Yeah.
Right. And so we no longer think that peace and silence and stillness is okay. And what I'm saying is, like, that could be any holiday, like that could be just going. There's some emotions that you need to go through, like whether it's church or whatever the case is. No matter how out of touch some organizations may be, they're needed. And it's just some things that we just got to learn that we inherently still need it, even if it's not the most popular, the most titillating. It's some things you just need, bare minimum.
Very true.
So break time.
Yep.
Break time.
And we're gonna keep talking, politics and talking social issues, because we have next hour none other than Jason Melendez ready. He is in the bullpen, ready, and he is a legislative director, activist, and campaign staffer. And so he's going to come on here and talk to us a little bit more about what's happening federally, nationally, and how it affects us locally. All right. IMHO, y'all. Tell a friend. Be right back.
MHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion
with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
MHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion
with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
MHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion
with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
MHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion
with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
Yeah, buddy. Sir Charles.
Miss Max.
I was trying to get something to drink, Charles. Razor, thank you.
Man, Max, how long was that break for him to still be trying to get a drink?
We got it. We got it.
But you could be anywhere in the world, but you are here with us, and we appreciate it. Because as per usual, Max and Razor, we take Charlottesville to the world and bring the world to Charlottesville. And so one of the things that we've been talking about, and Max, definitely got to credit you as well, because, like how busy we've been with our guests and whatnot, and we, have our own dialogue. But Max said, who can we bring in here to add some framework, some structure to this conversation, to maybe even like answer some legislative questions. And so, we thought about it, and we, did some reaching out, and I'm, happy to say that this young man obliged. I've actually seen him around, and I was surprised when I actually looked him up and saw the titles that he has and things like that. And so he's been an activist, a Democratic staffer, and a legislative director. And he is known local by folks that are aware of our political candidates and our process. But it's none other than Jason Melendez. Jason, good afternoon to you.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely.
Welcome to the show.
Yes, indeed. So, I mean, like, the world is in an uproar, right? Like, whether good or bad, everybody's trying to figure out.
Confused.
No one knows where to begin at this point.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, I'm supposed to be hosting this show, and I'm lost for words, right? Because regardless of what side of the aisle that you sit on, we know that this is a pivotal moment in history. We know that this is different, right? Some people feel that the change is necessary. Some people feel like that we need something to shake us up. Some people just want to do anything different. They're like, I don't want the status quo candidate anymore. And sometimes you better be careful what you ask for, right? But as we were saying, Jason, as we were coming on air, is that like humankind, right? Like the humanity in us would think that some things shouldn't be non-negotiable in the year 2025, right? Like
you'd imagine it'd be that way.
Right? Like when we think about like humanitarianism, like just basic human rights. But apparently they are up for debate, apparently. So I want to hand it over to you, because like I got plenty of questions. I know everybody here has plenty of questions when it comes to like what does this piece of legislation mean exactly? Like how does that impact our state and our district? But when you think about the current state of politics right now, like what stands out to you, right? Like sort of how would you sum it up as far as like where we are right now?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say it's been a really long 2 or 3 weeks. I don't even know if we've made the 3-week mark yet. Working in state politics, we're of course very reliant on our relationship with the federal government. And, for decades, states have been able to count on the federal government to be a steady hand and to, provide services like Medicare and Medicaid funding. And we learned last month that perhaps that's not a given anymore when the federal funding pause happened. And we had doctors here in Virginia saying, should I even take patients with Medicaid? Will I get reimbursed for doing this kind of service? We've got community health clinics in Virginia, including some in our region, that are facing pressures because of federal funding pauses. We have individuals from the transgender community impacted, not being able to get gender affirming care in Virginia because of efforts between our attorney general and the United States federal government. So it's I don't even know where you really begin, honestly, because it's just been such the longest 3 weeks. But I think what stands out the most is the perversion of the federal government in such a way that we've never really seen before, at least not in my lifetime. Because under Republican presidents and Democratic presidents in my lifetime, we've at least had a stable federal government, and it appears that the federal government is no longer willing to play that role.
Now, before we even dig into the issues, Max, and digging into particular legislation, I want to ask you, Jason, just to touch on and sort of formally introduce yourself when it comes to you as a person, because of course, like your profession, your expertise is one thing, but just you as a man being half Black, half Puerto Rican, right? And you just take a step back and you look at it as just being a citizen, as being a voter. How are these times impacting you?
Yeah, the way I always grew up, I was told to be active and be engaged, get involved. My great-grandfather served in the military. He was a son of Virginia. He was born in Virginia during segregation, during Jim Crow. He served in the military around the time of desegregation, came back to the United States after serving still to segregated domestic policy, So to me, I've always thought about, how can we advance our country in a direction that he would have wanted to see, and he was able to see during the latter end of his lifetime. My concern being now is that we appear to be slipping and turning back the hands of time. And that's why I'm so involved in this work, both my legislative work here at the state level, but also as being vice chair of the Human Rights Commission here in Charlottesville.
And you're apparently a young man, 20s, right?
20 exactly, until next month. So.
Okay, yeah, man, like you've accomplished a lot.
I'll have to come back for my birthday next month.
Okay, hey, I got a March birthday too. So,
what day is your birthday?
6.
I'm the 16th, so I'm just 10 days after.
Okay, good stuff. So short, like you're still a young man, and like you've hit the ground running when it comes to being involved politically. But I believe I'm going to assume that you're a Democrat because of the work that you've done and the folks that you've worked with.
Good assumption.
Okay, good assumption. Okay, but maybe let's start there, Max, because part of what happened in this election, and we're looking for your opinion on this, is a lot of folks are saying that Democrats have become stagnant. Democrats take the Black and minority vote for granted, right? Things of that sort. So what's your rebuttal to that statement alone of that it was almost the Democrats' election to lose, not necessarily the Republicans to win?
Yeah, I mean, I think going into this election cycle, it was always going to be a tough election cycle. We had, gotten a new candidate pretty much more than halfway through the cycle, being in July. And of course, we had a great candidate. We had, probably all the money in the world, if you want to look at it that way. But we always do. I think this is going to be a tough election. I think there's some ways the Democratic Party can adapt and learn. We just elected a new chair of the National Party, and we're, potentially looking at, maybe a new state party chair here in Virginia. A number of states have new party chairs as well. I think we'll begin to see a different approach that's more, relatable to working families, and actually prioritizes everyday issues that folks care about that may have flew under the radar a little bit in the 2024 cycle. Or at least some people may have felt that way.
I know one of the things that localities are considering, Charlottesville as well, is how federal funding may impact the budget. What changes they need to make, what changes the locality needs to make, where they need to cut costs and different things like that. And it's kind of, it's a toss-up at this point, but people are bracing themselves and trying to prepare as best as possible for anything that may be handed down. Can you kind of elaborate on, I guess, what you can forecast at this point, and what guide is there, if any, that our local government can kind of follow in order to best prepare for what may be coming?
Yeah, I mean, admittedly, it feels like we're flying blind. Even in the General Assembly, it feels like we're flying blind a little bit. I mean, this year, for example, we love to talk about having this $2.2 billion state revenue surplus. But then, a huge chunk of that's going to have to go towards offsetting Medicaid expenses that we have not gotten federal reimbursement for because our rolls have become too extensive. And we have not found a way to actually, consistently and routinely cover that. So if we look at, the fact that, for example, right now we have to put out $600 million to cover our Medicaid expenses just for this biennium, would be at a whole world's trouble if we lost Medicaid reimbursement from the federal government, or it dropped below 90%. We'd be talking about having to lose 600,000, if not more, Virginians off of Medicaid expansion. Immediately, day one impact, they wouldn't have health care. So that's a perfect example of where the state has to start gauging, how do we step in and how do we fix that? Down to the local level, I know we've got a ton of initiatives, some of which you're part of. The Fair Housing Assistance Program that the Human Rights Commission is trying to work on. There's the potential that, we may not get the funding to do that, but we still should have to move forward with that work, because what we know is that there's going to be a huge void in the federal government on the issues that at least our community cares about.
Do you feel that the energy right now in the state is that, is the hope that we're going to swing back to a Democratic governor, will elect, Democratic representatives? Is that sort of the energy, in the state right now?
I would say that's the way it's starting to appear, but we're not taking it for granted. We've got a number of great candidates out there, running across the entire Commonwealth. And I feel very optimistic, but we are still several months away. We've got a primary to get through to nominate our candidates for the rest of the statewide ticket. And we've got a number of down ballot primaries. So it's, we can't say we sealed the deal, but
are we hindered by the two-party system?
in Virginia, it just seems to be baked into the law. And it's going to take some time to unwind that. I do think, I've heard some folks. I think there was a candidate running for the National Democratic Party chair position who didn't win, thankfully. He hardly even qualified, but he was saying that we needed to, essentially sue third parties and go after them and try and outlaw their access to the ballot. And I just don't believe that's the way to go. I think third parties have begun to pop up, like the Working Families Party, for example, because they feel as though even in large tent parties like the Democratic Party, that we have not been responsive enough. And that means that we have to recalibrate.
I have a question for you.
Thank you.
Will we need so much Medicare if people get out here and get jobs?
Well, Medicare is for old folks. So, yeah, and you pay into it. It's your entitlement. Now, as far as Medicaid, with Medicaid expansion and that being the Affordable Care Act, still, even with folks being employed, there are still going to be folks that are going to be relying on Medicaid. Take Walmart, for example. Walmart being one of the largest Fortune 500 companies has probably more employees than any other major U.S. company that is receiving public assistance. So even if, folks were to go out, everyone who is on Medicaid rolls today were to go out and get a job, which some of them can't because some of them are disabled, some of them are older, it still wouldn't be the root of the issue.
Okay. No, I'm just wondering, as I'm not trying to play devil's advocate or anything, right? But for the older people, that some of this stuff comes down to the decisions and choices that you made younger, right? Now, granted, there are some disabled people that weren't disabled when they were in their working years. And there are some younger people that when COVID came along and free money came along, they figured out how to work the system.
That's true.
So my only knock is, if there's, just because you don't want to run a shovel does not mean that the job does not exist. And you don't have to work for Walmart. You can work for other institutions and organizations. So I'm leery of the way that, I'm just saying, the way that Democrats position people that aren't really able to take care of themselves, or people that'll say, look, you don't have to do this, I'll go get this for you. People have bought into that, right? So I'm not a Republican by no means, so I don't want you to think I am. But I do understand that there is a problem with the way I see the democratic system working, or has worked, that has created crutches for certain people. And it is starting to perpetuate to the younger generation, and we call that entitlement. But there was also a seed and a root that was planted a long time ago, and it seems to go back to a certain party. So when we talk about the money that's not there and the problems in the system, the local government system, I always go back to where's the root? Where's the root of the problem? So at that point, do we need to tell people, no, y'all need to go out here and get jobs? Well, I don't want to get a job. Well, you can only stay in housing for X amount of years and use it as a stepping stone to go to the next thing. Like, these are things that I don't think that are being said, that I'm not agreeing with either party. I'm just looking at logical sense, right? So I think that we're talking about the symptom.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say, at least it's specific to Virginia. I don't know the Medicaid stats for a number of other states, but I want to hone in on Medicaid because it's so important for two reasons. And I want to bifurcate it into two separate branches. One, you've got the Affordable Care Act Medicaid expansion folks. These are folks who have bought health care through the state exchange. They pay for their health care. They receive an assistance subsidy to make up the difference. Now, if we were to lose the federal reimbursement under 90%, those are the folks who are working and just getting an additional subsidy to make up that extra gap that they can't afford. Those would be folks that would lose their coverage. But then the bigger issue here with the Medicaid is that increasingly, because of Virginia's aging population, a large number of our Medicaid recipients actually are elderly folks who are also receiving Medicare, and they're using Medicaid assistance for nursing homes, because nursing homes in the cost of extended care facilities has become so expensive. And that's actually where a bulk of that trend is going towards, is a lot of that money is ending up in older age brackets, because folks are having to, for example, sell off their assets in order to get into an assisted living facility, and that puts them on the Medicaid rolls to help cover that difference. And that's where these costs are starting to accumulate as Virginia ages.
I think a big thing is people want to see policy reform that doesn't throw the baby out with the bathwater, because I think that's what happened with this last presidential election, is that folks get so frustrated by certain policies that, as we talked earlier, Razor, like they may get abused by a certain public, to where they just say, okay, well, if you're not going to reform it, let's just throw it all out. You know what I mean? And that's not necessarily the answer either, but you could understand how a citizen could get tired of saying, yeah, there's like too much abuse of this system. Like there's too much fat, you know what I mean? Like in these budgets. So, so then they just, so I think there were enough people, maybe the 2%, right? Of that 52% that voted for him, like was enough people maybe to just be like, let's just scrap it all. Like, since y'all can't get it right.
Yeah, and I don't know if I could necessarily say that's the correct answer, because I think we're starting to learn the consequences right now. I don't know if anyone really envisioned, that, we should have a federal funding pause 2 weeks into this administration, and pre-K Head Start funds wouldn't be funded, and Medicaid wouldn't be funded, portals for Social Security, people wouldn't get their disbursements, and I don't think anyone would have envisioned that. So I think we've got to return to a period of stability for the federal government. Even if this administration is going to move forward with large changes, there needs to be a sense of stability because our states depend on it.
Yeah, speak on that real quick before we leave this point, Max. On that right there, talk about, because I've been having this conversation with people too, talk about the budget shortfall. Because there's people who literally feel like, oh no, the states just have their own rights. States, they want us to go back to a confederacy. And some people, I think, really don't get how much money and how much assistance actually happens on the federal level. Like, so just talk a little bit about that, on what that could look like for Virginia if we had zero federal funding.
Yeah, I'll say, for example, the discussion about getting rid of the Department of Education has been brought up again as part of Project 2025 agenda. And, that is one of the largest sources of assistance to states to help run K-12 schools, and then also administer the financial assistance for higher education. So we don't know what that would look like if we just lost the Department of Education today. Where would that money go? Who would administer funding for K-12? Those are questions that no one has the answer to. But yeah, our states do depend on a lot on federal funds. And I was talking to a lawyer recently, a very distinguished lawyer, who practices around the area of state constitutionalism. And we were chatting over how important state legislatures are going to become, particularly these next 4 years, as we think about some of the challenges that we're going to see from the federal government.
And I, of course, can't help but to, again, synthesize this down to the local level and real live people, instead of that 30,000 foot view, because, reduced funding for assisted health care means what? Hospital loses money. Exactly. How do they fill that budget gap? More people dealing with healthcare issues. How does that impact their housing? How does that impact their food security? How does that impact individuals raising families, small children? How does it impact them holding a job?
And it's already hard enough to get by as it is.
The impact of that just goes on, and it's like, I don't know, like a bullet wound through the community, if you will. And then who's responsible? Because a lot of people are going to turn to our local government, impact our schools, right? If schools loses funding, and the schools already request an allocation from the city or expect an allocation from the city to help meet their budget. Whose responsibility is it then going to become, worst case scenario, to fix all of this? I feel like it's going to put a lot of undue stress on our local government. And I don't know where the answer lies. You increase taxes, you make another group unhappy. You cut things, what do you do?
That technical aspect, which I think you're so familiar with, is that also the cities are budgeting on different cycles than the federal government is. So we have to have some sort of certainty in the back of our mind, and at least be able to know what we can expect, or else we're going to have some critical shortfalls in vital areas.
If you feel like you have an unstable, if you will, community now, imagine what that looks like if these current changes or suggestions of changes really take a long-term effect.
And we can't also lose sight that some of these suggested changes are coming from somebody, Elon Musk, who was not elected president of the United States, a billionaire who was not elected to office, or even appointed by Congress to office.
Yeah, that's kind of my point in a lot of this, is that if you look at that inner circle, it's dominated by folks who are catering to wealthy white men. Ultimately, like, that's who is really, is really the beneficiary. But I had a question, and this kind of for Max as well. Do we actually waste enough, though, to where the budget could be corrected? Because that's what some people's plight is in all this. Like, they say there's too much wasteful government spending. So if we stop doing that, then we could get closer to a balanced budget.
Yeah. So, you know, that was actually a question that I have for Jason, is that maybe I just my bias, but is there any good that's coming out, potentially could come out of any of these changes?
I don't think he's allowed to answer that.
No, I mean, I don't even know if we have an idea, you know, I mean, because, you know, that is also contingent on Congress getting its act together. And the Congress's focus has been more so on revenue rather than spending so far, whereas the executive branch has looked after spending. But Congress is more interested in talking about how we can, you know, limit Social Security, how we can, you know, tweak taxes better for the rich and impact the middle class more. So I don't, you know, the answers are just, it's hard. We don't have the answers, you know, to a lot of these money questions. At least in Virginia, we run a pretty tight budget. I mean, we are pretty tight on rev. We are not a high tax state. As not anyone can say that we are a high tax state, but we are not a high tax state. And I know everyone hates the car tax. It's not everyone's favorite thing to pay. But if we got rid of the car tax today, we wouldn't have money for higher education. Wouldn't have a whole bunch of money for K-12 either. So we are just not a high tax state. And we're gonna have to also rethink for ourselves here in Virginia what that means. Because if we know that we don't have support from the federal government, then we're gonna have to start thinking about how we raise revenue.
Exactly. Yeah.
I know we got to go to break real quick, but I have to ask this because this is troubling me listening to these conversations, to be honest with you. Because it's almost like we're looking at the decisions that's being made. But when you start talking about K-12 and the amount of money that it takes to go into the education, why aren't we also looking at the irresponsibility of people having multiple children that they can't take care of? That then if going off of one of the policies that he was talking about, writing about, moms can't go for tax credits or stuff if they're getting child support. But when I hear people talk about the education, what's needed for the schools, and schools need to send in, and people complaining at the beginning of the school year about having to send extra tissues and having to do this, and my kids only need this and that. But our community tends to have a multitude of kids that they can't take care of, that we're then looking for assistance from taxpayers, government, whoever is responsible for this. And I personally got a problem with that, right? So if there isn't money for these things, we also have to look at, in my humble opinion, the irresponsibleness of the people having children that they can't take care of.
That's part of that reform.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with you, Reza, but I mean, most of us are just one decision away from having kids that we can't take care of. But the thing is that what's the alternative? Then we
may not have reproductive health care to manage family planning in 4 years from now, potentially.
Keep your legs closed.
Or think about
do you have kids? Has that worked for you?
8 of them.
So I mean, it didn't work for you. Keeping the legs closed didn't work.
I got
for you.
money,
and that's fine. But you know, tomorrow
ain't gotta pay taxes.
I know so many folks who live on the streets, whether it's in Charlottesville, where I used to live in Richmond, who had money one day and didn't have money the next.
My parents were like that.
It could be anybody. It just could be anybody. And we have an obligation. That's what government is here for. Government is to assist folks and promote the better welfare of the people. That is government's essential job.
I understand it, but I'm saying, and I'm not targeting any people, but if your kids got 7 different last names throughout the household, you're not making the best decisions. And then at that point, I don't think you should still be walking around at the first of the month with 6 baskets full of food from EBT and getting all these things. That's bad decision making. And I can't give that a pass. I don't care what color a person is. I understand.
I mean, from the social element of it all, I think that makes a whole bunch of sense. But I think from the human aspect, you know, these are still kids that are going to need to be fed.
Yeah, what about the kids? Like,
that's the problem. As long as we lead with our heart, we'll continue to make bad decisions. Then we'll have people come along with orange hair to tell us how to fix it, and then we'll be left with our drawers down.
But I'm talking about the kids.
I would much prefer to have a live.
You can't blame the kids for
that's
for
like
adults' mistake.
What we were talking about, the ICE whole situation, right? Everybody's hollering about, oh, it's a shame what happened to the kids. But if the parents put the kids in a bad situation, what do you do? Like, I don't know what to do. Because like you said, your heartstring pull, you're going to stick kids in these cages. And we start thinking about the horrific things that our communities went through years and years ago, right? And that's different than if you go somewhere, if you're, for lack of a better, and I'm just playing devil's advocate, if you're trespassing in a place that you are not supposed to be, so to speak, by the laws of the land, even though everybody else came the same way, but for whatever reason, you're somewhere where you're not supposed to be, and then you're chastised from it, and then it carries on to your kids. Did the place make it bad for you, or did your decisions, even though you're trying to make a better life for yourself, right? There's a way and a process to do everything. And I think we've gotten it such in a way in the community that in society, I'm saying, that we have gotten to where we try to make exceptions and we revert back to the kids. And I think that certain parties have accentuated that. You make your bad decisions and I'm gonna make it better for you.
Can I rebut that with a question real quick, Jason?
So can I just say, let me just say real quick, it's just real quick. It's just real quick. Even listen, even though I personally want the elbow raised in the mouth right now, I need people to understand that as hard as it is to hear this type of conversation, it is a conversation that many people are having. Okay, it is necessary, and we do have to talk through this thing. Because ultimately there's people out there trying to make decisions for you in your life. I just want to preface the rest of the conversation with that. That's all.
But I like how Razor said, I'm not targeting anybody, and then he hit the bullseye.
Right.
That's what I like about that. But Razor, simple question to me to sum it up before we go to break, and we'll come back and talk more with Jason to close out the show. But if a child goes to school with no money, does that child deserve to starve?
You ask me?
Yeah.
Hand me that microphone. If a child go to school with no money, does that child deserve to have to starve?
Yes. Straight. That's a straight question. Simple as I can make.
No.
Okay.
No. But
that's my whole point.
Let me say let me say this though. As many nonprofit organizations as we have around here that draw up money for kids, right? That's where I believe the problem is starting at, is because we don't monitor these people. If you're a nonprofit organization getting food for the people that need it, you shouldn't be riding around a 2025 Tesla. You're not doing anything. So I think that the structure of these organizations is as crooked as the mob itself, right? So if the money that's taken in, all these little jars, all this, do you want to round up to give money to if these people were actually accounting for the money that's being there, we'd have enough. You know what I'm saying? So we tend to I think we look in the wrong direction. Trying to fix this problem, we shouldn't all be looking all the way up to Capitol Hill, right? When we have all these things going on right here. I think that there's as crooked as any drug dealer sitting on a corner with a pistol shooting up the community at nighttime. They just do it in a Brooks Brothers suit with a smile on their face.
I get what you're implying, but I gotta say that's just not true though. There's not enough organizations here to feed all the kids that actually need it in school. If you think about it that way, like people underestimate how much we actually get from tax dollars. Like there's not enough organizations that would really be able to replace taxes.
I don't believe
we're
that.
Gonna leave the same standard.
I seriously do not believe that, because if you take let's say the facilities that they rent out, the buildings that they have, right? And you take that monthly rent, most everything now is done digitally, right? Nobody's sitting around counting stacks of cash no more. So the money that you spend on rent and the staffing that's inside there, you're telling me if that money was actually used for what its intended purpose was, not to be dispersed just because I got a title that we couldn't take care, I don't believe that.
You can take care of some, but I'm just saying, like I don't believe that would answer like the wide.
How many kids do you think
needs
money? How many kids do you need money?
I mean, I don't know that.
No, I'm just saying, just if we were to look at it from that point of view, it wouldn't take much.
I know how I can answer that though.
Yeah,
I do know that it seems like more and more schools are considered qualifiers for free and reduced lunch. So that tells me then that we have a wide issue and we have wide disparaging income gaps to where majority of schools qualify for free and reduced lunch, which to me means that like I don't know if then an organization that may pay its executive board or whatever could suffice that, because that's a lot of people. That's a lot of people.
And all that means to me is that the schools have turned themselves into a business. Because if you look at the economic growth of every community, it's based off of the school. And the school is based off of what's coming in there. So if a school can spend $8, $9, $10, $15 million to expand, you mean to tell me that whole time before they decided to do that, they couldn't feed the kids? I don't believe that.
I got you.
That's like the government paying $15,000 for a toilet. You know, all the things that we used to hear that they used to do. It makes no sense to me.
I mean, here, I think the money aspect of that, a lot of our Virginia school systems are relying on bonds to
Yes.
build. It's not money that they had.
And
It's money that
sometimes
they are
it's
having
in
to raise.
response
Yeah.
to influx or growth of population in the community.
It's not always
It's-
hard liquid
right.
cash that we can just throw out. So a lot of times we have to raise revenue, especially at the local level. With state government, we don't do a ton of that. But the local level bonds is the way to get by. And we have to choose when we can strategically get bonds for
Mhm.
lower interest rate periods and make that difference up. So it is a complex equation. Budgeting is not easy, especially for local government.
Cool.
Okay.
We are joined
Yeah.
by legislative director, amongst many other things, activist, staffer, Jason Melendez. Man, this is a great.
You good, Jason? Though you'll stay for the
good.
last 15
Yeah,
minutes.
no, I'm
They've been
good.
shooting
I'm
in
good.
here for a while. Me and you had to get up under the desk. But we're gonna take a quick break. We'll be right back. More with Jason.
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight our attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years, and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that, and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in this city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories, more people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at these issues. We can present them on IMHO. Vinegar Hill Magazine can take that a step further, and just together we can just make this thing that can be an example of how we can change the media landscape, how we can be more inclusive to get these voices in, to get these people heard. That's just one thing that doesn't happen in so many places, and it's a shame.
We think we live in a society that's very progressive, and we're talking about equity and diversity and inclusion and all these things. Still, the way that black people, and I would say, and I would argue especially black men, are portrayed by the media is incredibly dangerous, and you've seen the sort of tangible violence that it's led to over the past year.
The community can support the SIM project by first and foremost giving us an opportunity. We understand that it can be difficult to give trust right now, especially considering the current social and political environment. But this project will only be as successful as the community allows it to be. And so we ask you to give us the opportunity to do the work, critique the work, and make sure that we stay aligned with the vision. Another way that the community can get behind the SIM project is through engagement. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're talking about. We want to put your stories out there. And so whether it's reading the articles written by Charlottesville Tomorrow or Vinegar Hill Magazine, or tuning in to In My Humble Opinion on Sundays on 101.3 Jams from noon to 3 p.m., either way, we want you engaged. We want you to be part of this. The community can also support the SIM project through funding. To learn more about how to support SIM, you can visit our website. Thank you for your support.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion
with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion
with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
I to the ism, H to the Izzo Talk Show. Back like we never left.
We are.
For the people. And this is good. This is good stuff. I want to ask Jason a question. I don't know if I want to put him on the spot or just wait till after the show, but I hope you'll come back. Like maybe regularly. I think this is good.
I'm only down the street.
Okay, that's what's up. Is that okay with you, Ms. Matt?
That's perfectly
I mean,
fine.
I think this conversation has been very fruitful and very, very transparent and authentic. And that's what we do. That's what we do here. So Jason, as we close out the show with you for today, it's a couple things that we definitely want to make sure that we touch on, and that's big conversation within the community. But as we lead up, to the DEI and just the treatment of marginalized people, let's say, for that, like a couple other things, like I want to be a little positive. I'm gonna pull a razor.
Did you hear that, Razor?
I am.
That might mean you can't be part of this conversation.
I'm actually gonna pull a razor, and I'm actually gonna tell y'all some things that I think Trump actually is doing okay with.
Okay.
I personally don't mind declassifying documents. And now here is one that's gonna lead into DEI conversation. Like, people have made it a bullet point about banning biological males from competing in women's sports.
Yes.
Like that's a big thing. I personally feel like that makes sense. Because think about it, even if you are somebody who feels like that your gender is determined at the point of birth, how the doctor labeled you, right? If you believe that, then that means you also believe that males are genetically, like, physically more dominant. That's why you have men's sports and you have women's sports. So I don't see how that's offensive personally. And I get everybody has their own opinion, but I don't see how that's offensive if somebody's biologically, quote unquote, a male. Why it wouldn't be fair for them to compete in women's sports. So there's a couple of things. I want all the Trumpers to know, like that I'm not all doom and gloom. But so I give you two things that I'm all right with.
Well, what's your response, Jason? Yeah,
I'll say on the biological male. Or I mean, first we'll start with the executive order because it's impossible to mention that topic without mentioning the two executive orders.
Okay.
I mean, I think the federal government, especially, I mean, and I don't think any level of government has any business legislating around sports. I can think to very few circumstances where, at least in the Commonwealth of Virginia, we have legislation around sports. I mean, that's usually a decision left up to associations.
Yes.
And while I see no issue with it, and I think I'll even go ahead and quote Donald Trump from 2015, where he said that, there hasn't been issues with trans folks existing in spaces. So that was him in 2015. I think a lot has happened between the last decade, but that was him in an interview in 2015 talking about North Carolina when they were looking at the bathroom bills. Obviously a lot has changed in 2025 since one of his first executive orders was going after that community in specific. And I think that that has been a constant concern I've heard, at least from locals here in Charlottesville. So, and that executive order is impacting, of course, UVA and VCU medical centers as well. So, we've got to probably get out of that realm of legislating in that area. We just don't need to be.
I seem to remember a boxing match where Reza, you're not in this conversation. You're supposed to be positive. But where
You're talking about the Olympics match?
Yeah, I believe so.
Although we know that she was actually a woman.
Yeah, she was a woman. Like,
okay.
I mean, to my understanding, actually, what we know is I think Russia had been putting pressure on the International Committee behind boxing to try and say that she was a man, even though she wasn't. In fact, she's actually a pretty conservative woman. So I could only imagine what she would have had to gone through going back home, accused of having transitioned when her family would have been against it. But it appears to have been manufactured right out of the Kremlin. And it made its way to conservative prime time, which is more concerning.
Okay, we believe you, Jason. Go ahead, Charles.
Although she did beat the hell out of herself.
Indeed, she did.
And that raised the question. Hey, but
must be a man.
But before we let you go, Max, Reza's supposed to say that.
I'm sorry.
All right, yeah, but DEI. Let's talk about all things DEI. Jason, I kind of know, but I want your take on it. Because there's always these like lightning rod dog whistles that Trumpers love to use, and one being right now is DEI. Somehow this thing, right, like this entity that has the potential and has the intent and has actually, in fact, proven to benefit so many different sectors of population. Talking about different races benefit from it.
Some of their own.
Exactly.
Governor Abbott can use his wheelchair to access the state capitol in Texas because of diversity, equity, inclusion.
There you go. So maybe you can talk about it from being a staffer. Like, what is that mind trick? Like, what is that Jedi mind trick that made people attach DEI to lifting Black people up and gays up, and it keeps white people down?
Not a clue. I don't know if I could maybe we have to draw it back to the whole white replacement theory, which I think something Charlottesville had unfortunately become familiar with what happened in 2017. I think there's just a huge element of racism behind it, and that's just the admitted truth of the matter. I mean, pulling down the history on the Tuskegee Airmen from the Department of the Air Force website, chastising Department of Education staff for doing, training that was recommended actually during the first Trump administration. This is just, it's gotten to be out of hand. And I think one of the most upsetting parts of it, we'll go back to last year in March when the Key Bridge collapsed in Baltimore. It wasn't even 24 hours that we had Republican elected officials saying that it was due to DEI and that the Biden administration was incompetent because of DEI. We hadn't even.
How about the recent plane crash?
Yeah, the plane crash. We haven't found all the bodies out of the water in the harbor in Baltimore by the time folks were levying that allegation. The plane crash, up in Northern Virginia, same thing. I mean, it is just I don't know. It's their go-to term for everything they dislike, I guess.
Yeah, sort of like how it was woke.
Yeah, it was woke before,
woke
but
became a bad thing.
Woke got too tired. So
right. Yeah, but you said it perfectly. It is racism. Like that's the only thing that I can like boil it back to, because what would make a woman want to vote against her own health rights? Like what would make a Latina want to vote for being deported? Like I literally heard on WNRN, not WNRN.
NPR.
Yeah, NPR. Sorry, NPR the other day. Like there was a group and there was a rally of illegal immigrants, like lobbying for Trump, and was literally saying things like, oh no, like he's good for the country, and I just hope that I don't get deported. I'm like, what? Like that's just some logic.
And I think they believe that.
And the thoughts and prayers isn't enough there.
I say you voted for it.
Thoughts and prayers is not going to be enough there because I think ICE has really started already.
Yeah. And so speaking of ICE, break that down for us. Like what reign do they have? Because you're hearing about sanctuary places, and you're hearing about them being not let into places. So what's the rules around that? I mean, because I guess technically they have been given like sort of free reign to go where they want to go, right?
Yeah, they've got marching orders from the executive branch to carry out immigration enforcement, but one of the things that they don't often carry with them is a judicially signed warrant. So in many circumstances, they actually can't detain somebody. And if folks know their rights, they know that they can't usually be detained by ICE unless a judge, a U.S. judge, has signed that warrant. Usually these administrative warrants are signed in the name of the Secretary of the Homeland Security, who does not have that judicial power to detain somebody. It used to be that ICE couldn't go into schools and churches, places you probably wouldn't want them to be. I think you should be able to go to worship without worrying that you're going to be picked up by ICE while worshiping, or you should be able to go to school without worrying about being detained.
But it's happening.
It's happening now. Even Puerto Ricans apparently are being asked about their documents upon arrival to the United States, as if they're not already U.S. citizens. So, and I know there's been talk about visits from ICE and Customs and Border Patrol in the Charlottesville area and in Stanton and Waynesboro. I'm glad that the school divisions, both the city and the county, have said, we're not going to allow them in because they don't have a right to inspect student records under FERPA. I mean, they just don't have that right unless they come back with a judicially signed warrant.
So do you have any insight as far as what's actually happening to the people that are being detained? Are they being deported? Are they being taken to jail? Are they being placed in some type of camp? Or
I mean, I think we're really working off the headlines. I haven't heard much about at least Virginia specific. I know folks, I have mentioned ICE visiting places to inspect documents, but I haven't heard quite what's happening in terms of detention. I know there's been talk about reopening Guantanamo Bay for the use of detention of migrants, which is a unique take, to say the least, because I thought we were always about trying to close down Guantanamo Bay. But and then I think, I know at least locally here, our regional jail will report you to ICE if you are picked up and held in pretrial detention in most circumstances. At least if you interact with city police or county police, and it stops there, they won't report you to ICE. But I think ACRJ, if you go to ACRJ, I believe that that board has made that determination some time back that they will report. So I think Charlottesville could be, you call it a sanctuary city. If you go to jail and you're held in pretrial detention, or you're found guilty of a class 1 misdemeanor that warrants you to get extended detention, there is a chance that you probably will be reported to ICE.
What do we do with the slave catcher? Like during that time, like history repeats itself. Seasons go around. So it's almost like what we saw happen when like you were a free slave, and then you had the slave catchers that went around. It's just started. It's the same thing, right? They just shortened the name.
Yeah.
What do we do to stop it then? Is what it's going to take to stop it now.
Well, I think one of the best things that folks can do right now is, now that we've all got phones in our pockets, keep a screenshot on your phone of your rights. If you know that you're potentially going to be targeted by ICE, or your documentation status is in question, even if you own a green card or you have some sort of temporary status here, because temporary status can be revoked. Keep a card with your rights on it. Keep contact information for an attorney. And then just remember, if ICE comes to you and they come with administrative warrant inspected, make sure that if it's not signed by a judge, then you don't have anything you don't have to comply either.
And he's just so unpresidential. Trump is like, that's what gets me. It's like how Rudy is in press conferences when you got people, you had a mass casualty that we haven't seen in decades.
Yeah.
It's like people think that this is like who should represent them. To me, it just shows that
well, even to the outside world too, with the tariffs and everything, that image that the tariff shows, putting tariffs on our Canadian and Mexican allies and putting tariffs on China. Now, China, I'm a little bit more sympathetic to that cause, putting the tariffs on China, but putting the tariffs on Mexico and Canada, two nations that we share borders with, and have a free trade agreement with, is going to raise prices on our common goods. We haven't quite seen it yet on the avocados for Super Bowl Sunday, but if you're going to be making dip maybe next year, you might see it.
But the eggs are up.
The eggs are certainly up. Yeah. They won't tell you about that though. They won't tell you that the eggs are almost 2 times the price they were when Joe Biden left office just last month. So the tariffs is going to be a really detrimental thing. I think he's going to learn it really quickly that he's going to have to walk that back. It's going to impact Virginia farmers because retaliatory tariffs hurt Virginia farmers. It's going to impact port workers, the Port of Virginia down in Hampton Roads, because they're going to see less traffic. And it's going to impact, home builders in Virginia who need lumber from Canada to build the homes that we need in the Charlottesville area to bring down housing prices. So we're going to see those tariffs hit every corner of our life.
But Jason, it doesn't matter. You just have to be rich and wealthy. Don't you get it?
Well, I wish I got it. I wish I was in that boat, but I think we all wish we were in that boat, but I'm not in that boat. So, I'm thinking about what's going to happen if Canada hits back with retaliatory tariffs and said, we're going to charge you for, energy.
But there's been talks about that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And we rely on our shared energy grid with Canada.
Mm-hmm.
So energy prices could go up. Your Dominion bill could go up. Yeah. So folks need to buckle up. It's going to be a long ride. It's 4 years.
Well, that's what I was going to say. What do we do, Jason?
So we buckle up.
Buckle up.
And hopefully Jesus will take the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
I've been calling him, but he hasn't come down just yet. But
and guess what? He ain't coming back. It's on us. He already died for us.
That's true.
It's on us now to get it straight. But Jason, hopefully, man, we may have to make this regular. Like, I don't know how regular.
I'd be more than happy to come back. Absolutely. You know how to get in contact with me.
Absolutely. So, Max, you want to take us home? Speaking of Jesus, we got some Fred Hammond. We're gonna send the folks home with.
Not much to say here. It's been a wonderful show, Jason. Thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to having you back, making this a regular conversation because we're gonna need some guidance for the next 4 years. But thank you, family, for sticking with us the last 3 hours. We love you. Hope that you've gotten something out of today's show. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Happy Black History Month. Enjoy the Super Bowl, no matter who you're rooting for.
And if the Chiefs win, Razor's gonna be wearing a Kelsey jersey next week. You heard it here first.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion
with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion
with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.